Hi, okay, I'm a geneticist from the University of Canberra, so I'm going to talk, I guess, a little bit differently today. So I'm doing citizen science and my experiences in crowdfunding for research in this context is useful for really any startup business, I guess. So what is crowdfunding? So some people here might not be familiar. It's really a simple concept of sponsorship where people contribute small amounts of money usually via online sources, and it's for a specific project or a cause. Worldwide crowdfunding activities really boomed over the last 5 years, and it's really the advent of social media and social networking that has caused this. In 2012 there was $2.7 billion raised using crowdfunding, and it's estimated this is going to increase pretty dramatically to $5 to $6 billion this year, and I'm part of that. So there's three different types of crowdfunding. I'm only going to talk about one today. So the donation and reward type of crowdfunding is really the most widespread. It's 70% of crowdfunding, and that's where people aren't really expecting a financial return on this. It is a donation because you believe in a cause. And you might get some kind of token reward, like a t-shirt or something that reminds you about the project. Person-to-person lending is more philanthropic, a mix of philanthropy and investment. So you invest your money maybe to give someone a college loan in a developing country. You expect to get the money back. And one of the more recent and less developed ways of crowdfunding is the equity model, where people who donate money become a shareholder in the company. And there's definitely a financial return expected there. So I went with the donation and reward, being in a scientific research program, and I had to choose between two different funding models. So the everything and more or all and nothing, and it's really where you sit on that risk-reward spectrum as to what you choose. So everything and more says it all. Really, everything that people donate goes straight to you straight away. All or nothing, pledges are made, and it's only when you reach your goal, your funding target, that you get the money. But if you don't reach that, you get nothing. So you have to kind of think about your audience and whether or not they're likely to help you reach that goal. So my project in particular was called the Sugar Glider Genetics Project, and it was really a two-pronged project where we were looking at sugar gliders that are kept as pets in the USA. There's about a million sugar gliders in the US, even though it's a native Australian species. And so the first thing we wanted to do is use genetics to tell the origin story of those animals. Where did they come from? So they are an Australian species, but they also exist in New Guinea. And so the people in America who have these as pets want to know where they come from. The second part of the project is looking at coat colour mutations that breeders are actually actively selecting for in the domestic trade. So my first piece of advice for any crowdfunding sort of campaign is finding someone who cares about your work. And really the first thing I think is key is if you can find a niche audience that ideally has a financial interest in your work. So for me, basically the financial aspect comes in that a white sugar glider costs up to about $2,500. Whereas the standard grey variety that you might see over actually in Parliament House, they had one, is only $200. So the people who have these animals and the breeders have a financial stake. It's also a really passionate community. The people who keep them, they're not easy to keep, they're quite finicky, and they are a committed community, and they're super engaged in the research and want to see people do work on these animals. Timing your launch for maximum exposure is really, again, a really important part. So I actually launched my campaign at a sugar glider owners convention in Ohio. So I knew immediately, I reached out to several hundred people who are the key audience, and they're going to go out and spread it amongst their networks, and really basically getting that kickstart right from the get-go makes a big difference. And I'd also mention that, you want to choose a realistic funding goal, because if you ask for the world, people will be really put off. Communication and exposure obviously is key. So basically this is a daily commitment during your campaign. You need to be out there, social networking, using your print and online media, radio interviews, getting up really early in the morning. Industry support and promotion, I actually started reaching out to pet food companies, and they were able to provide financial assistance, blogs, advertising, and the most successful campaigns actually use the goods, is the last one, to encourage donations. So if you can actually link up with your audience and say, okay, you know, you give your $10, you get a hat, but that's not really the important thing. That's not the motivation. You say you get a hat, but what you're also buying is sequencing of one gene, you know, for this particular animal. So you know what you're engaging in the research. So basically there's ups and downs, there's a lag in the middle, and everyone comes through in the end. And the end of the story was that I was successful. I exceeded the funding target, 110% funded, and I'm now in the process of starting this research. So.